animal agriculture is a leading cause of the climate crisis.
Imagine a world where every rescue mission to save an animal turns into an ecological nightmare. Well, in a bid to protect wildlife, animal rights activists have inadvertently unleashed invasive species into new environments, causing chaos and destruction. It sounds like a plot twist in a novel, but it's a reality happening right now. From cute critters to dangerous predators, these animals have become a relentless force, disrupting ecosystems and endangering native species. Join us as we delve into the untold story of invasive animal rescues gone wrong. Red foxes of Australia. Introduced in the 19th century for the thrill of English-style fox hunting, these cunning predators have evolved into one of the most destructive invasive species on the continent. The story begins in the 1830s when settlers brought red foxes to Van Diemen's Land, now Tasmania, to spice up their hunting adventures. This practice spread rapidly, reaching the Port Phillip district and Sydney regions of New South Wales by 1845. Ironically, the very animals intended to preserve an old-world pastime became the catalysts of ecological upheaval. Initially, foxes struggled to gain a foothold in Tasmania, possibly due to fierce competition with the native Tasmanian devil. However, by 2010, red foxes managed to establish themselves on the island, despite the intense competition. On the Australian mainland, the situation was markedly different. Foxes thrived in the absence of large native carnivores, save for dingoes, which occasionally preyed on them. This advantage allowed foxes to spread like wildfire. By 2012, estimates revealed that Australia was home to over 7.2 million red foxes. They have spread across most of the continental mainland, from Victoria to South and Western Australia. Red foxes have wreaked havoc on Australia's unique ecosystems. Red foxes are superbly adapted to their new environment. With a diet that includes small mammals, birds, insects, and even fruits, they've become a formidable apex predator. This versatility means they prey on a wide range of native wildlife, leading to alarming population declines and even extinctions. In addition to their voracious appetite, red foxes exhibit a remarkable ability to adapt to diverse habitats, from urban fringes to remote bushlands. This adaptability has allowed them to spread beyond their initial ranges, further amplifying their ecological footprint. Despite ongoing efforts to control their population through various means, trapping, baiting, and even shooting, the red fox continues to be a formidable and unwelcome guest in Australia. Mute swan. The Maryland mute swan, Cygnus olorvis, become a prominent example of how introduced species can disrupt local ecosystems. Originally brought to North America in the mid-1800s as ornamental birds for parks and estates, mute swans have since established themselves as a significant invasive species, particularly after being introduced to Michigan in 1919. Their initial placement in controlled environments, such as parks and private estates, did not anticipate the long-term consequences of their introduction. When some of these captive swans escaped or were released into the wild, they adapted remarkably well to their new environment. This led to the establishment of feral populations, which have since expanded rapidly across various regions, including Maryland. The spread of mute swans has had substantial ecological impacts. They are known for their aggressive behavior, especially during the nesting season. Mute swans are among the most territorial waterfowl species and will aggressively drive away other birds from their nesting sites. This hostile behavior extends to native waterfowl and wetland wildlife, displacing them from their habitats and reducing biodiversity in the process. One of the most significant environmental concerns associated with mute swans is their feeding habits. A single mute swan can consume between 4 to 8 pounds of aquatic vegetation per day. This feeding behavior involves uprooting and destroying wetland plants, which play a crucial role in maintaining the health of aquatic ecosystems. These plants provide food for native birds, cover for fish, and habitat for invertebrates. When mute swans feed excessively, they can decimate these essential plants, leading to the degradation of wetland habitats. The destruction of wetland vegetation has cascading effects on the ecosystem. Native fish and invertebrates lose their habitat and food sources, which can lead to declines in their populations. Additionally, the loss of vegetation can result in reduced water quality and increased erosion, further exacerbating the environmental damage. Efforts to manage the impact of mute swans have been ongoing, with various strategies employed to control their numbers and mitigate their effects on native ecosystems. These measures include population control programs, habitat restoration efforts, and public education campaigns about the ecological threats posed by these invasive birds. Gray squirrels. In 1997, Italy faced a pressing ecological dilemma: the invasive gray squirrel. Originally from North America, gray squirrels were introduced to Europe, where they rapidly began to outcompete native red squirrels. Their robust adaptability and aggressive behavior led to a significant decline in the red squirrel population. In response, Italian authorities planned a large-scale culling to eradicate gray squirrels and protect the native species. However, this plan quickly encountered fierce opposition from animal rights activists. These activists argued that killing gray squirrels was inhumane and unethical, despite the ecological reasoning behind the plan. Their legal interventions delayed the eradication efforts for 3 critical years. By the time the legal battles concluded, the gray squirrel population had exploded, rendering the initial plan ineffective. Based on claims that their population growth has caused a reduction in the number of red squirrels, gray squirrels have become a significant ecological threat in Italy. Their impact extends beyond mere competition for food. Gray squirrels also carry the squirrelpox virus, which is lethal to red squirrels but harmless to themselves. This has accelerated the decline of red squirrel populations, compounding the problem. In the early 2000s, the unchecked population of gray squirrels began to spread beyond their initial territories in northern Italy. They invaded local parks, forests, and even urban areas, further entrenching themselves in the ecosystem. Their presence has led to a drastic reduction in the number of red squirrels, and the balance of local biodiversity has been severely disrupted. The situation in Italy mirrors earlier efforts in the UK to control gray squirrel populations. In the 1950s, the UK government incentivized the culling of gray squirrels by offering 6pence for each tail. This measure was moderately effective, but the gray squirrel population continued to pose a significant threat. On the island of Anglesey in Wales, a more recent and targeted eradication program began in 1998. This initiative aimed to protect the native red squirrel population and has seen some success, offering a potential model for other regions grappling with similar issues. Today, the gray squirrel population in Italy continues to expand, and the red squirrel remains endangered. The initial delay caused by legal actions allowed the gray squirrels to establish a stronghold, making eradication efforts increasingly challenging. Conservationists and wildlife experts emphasize the need for proactive measures and early intervention to manage invasive species effectively. While the intentions of animal rights activists were rooted in compassion, the unintended consequences highlight the delicate balance between ethical considerations and ecological preservation. House sparrows. In the mid-19th century, European settlers in North America introduced the house sparrow, hoping to bring a touch of home to the New World. They believed these familiar birds could help control insects that were damaging their crops. However, this well-intentioned move quickly turned into an ecological disaster. The first 8 pairs of house sparrows arrived from England in 1850 and were released in New York in the spring of 1851. Another 100 sparrows followed in 1852, with several more introductions over the years. Despite warnings from naturalists about potential problems, most people embraced the newcomers, building nest boxes and feeding them. By 1880, it became evident that introducing these birds was a grave mistake. The house sparrow population had exploded, and by 1900s, they had spread to the Rocky Mountains. By 1910, they were well established in California. Today, the house sparrow is one of the world's most abundant songbirds, found on every continent except Antarctica. Although house sparrows do consume insects while their nestlings are young, for most of the year, they feed on the very grains they were supposed to protect. Worse, these birds are incredibly aggressive, often attacking and killing native birds. House sparrows have been known to assault 70 different bird species. Bluebirds are frequent victims, with house sparrows regularly killing their nestlings, destroying their eggs, and sometimes even killing the adult female as she incubates the nest. Other common targets include martins and tree swallows. House sparrows begin nesting as early as late February, claiming the best spots before native birds even start looking for nest sites. They breed prolifically, producing up to 4 broods per year. By the early 1990s, the detrimental impact of introducing house sparrows became undeniable, and people began heeding the warnings of ornithologists. Gene Stratton Porter, an ornithologist, lamented that they are such unspeakable pests, they are worthy of mention only to advise their extinction. Henry Van Dyke, an American educator, also stated that the kingdom of birds is divided into 2 departments, birds and house sparrows. Unfortunately, by then, it was too late to eradicate them. Despite their many unattractive qualities, house sparrows do offer some redeeming values, particularly in scientific research. Their comfort around humans allows researchers to study them without causing significant stress. Over 5,000 documented studies have been conducted on house sparrows, exploring topics such as their role in disease transmission, their rapid adaptability and evolution. Lobsters. On May 8, 2015, Dublin, Ireland, became the stage for a dramatic act of animal rights activism. In a bold move, a group of activists stormed a Chinese restaurant and liberated 9 lobsters, which had been destined for the boiling pot. This act of defiance against the cruel treatment of live animals sparked widespread media attention and ignited a fierce debate about animal welfare. The activists, driven by a strong commitment to end the suffering of lobsters and other live animals used in cooking, carefully transported the lobsters to the Irish Sea. Their goal was to offer the crustaceans a chance at freedom, far from the confines of a restaurant tank. The media coverage of this event was substantial, shining a spotlight on the often overlooked practice of boiling live lobsters and the broader issues of animal cruelty. However, the optimism surrounding the lobsters' newfound freedom was short-lived. Despite their dramatic escape, the lobsters faced a grim reality once released into the wild. The conditions of the Irish Sea, while a natural habitat, were not conducive to their survival. The lobsters had been in captivity for an extended period, which meant they were not acclimated to the wild environment. Several factors contributed to their struggle. Firstly, the lobsters had been kept in an artificial, controlled environment with specific water conditions. The sudden transition to the unpredictable and harsher conditions of the open sea proved too challenging. They were unprepared for the currents, temperatures, and potential predators in their new surroundings. Additionally, the lobsters lacked the necessary skills and instincts to find food and shelter in the wild, having been deprived of these natural behaviors in captivity. Despite the well-intentioned efforts of the activists, the lobsters' survival was compromised by their extended captivity. The harsh reality of their situation highlights the complexities of wildlife conservation and the challenges involved in rehabilitating animals from human environments back into the wild. In the aftermath, the event prompted increased scrutiny of practices involving live animals in restaurants and stirred discussions on ethical treatment. It also reinforced the need for more humane approaches to handling and preparing seafood. Marbled crayfish. In 1995, an unsuspecting twist of fate set the stage for one of the most fascinating and problematic invasions in recent ecological history. A biology student in Germany, eager to conduct a science project, purchased a bag of crayfish from a local aquarium store. Sold to him under the guise of Texas crayfish, these crustaceans were in fact marbled crayfish, a species with an extraordinary ability to reproduce asexually. Initially, the student was excited to observe and study these creatures, but it wasn't long before the true nature of the marbled crayfish became apparent. The population began to grow at an alarming rate due to their unique parthenogenetic reproduction, where females produce offspring without the need for males. The student found himself overwhelmed by the sheer number of crayfish. What started as a manageable science project quickly turned into a burgeoning infestation. Frustrated with the rapid multiplication, the student decided to dispose of some of the crayfish. However, his decision to release a portion into local waterways, rather than properly disposing of them, marked a pivotal moment. He also gave some of the crayfish to a friend, who, perhaps underestimating the potential consequences, released them into nearby rivers and lakes. The impact of this seemingly small act of negligence was profound. The marbled crayfish, now free in the wild, began to proliferate uncontrollably. Their ability to clone themselves allowed them to quickly establish populations in new environments. The crayfish spread beyond their initial release sites, infiltrating various water bodies across Germany. From there, their expansion continued, reaching other parts of Europe and even Madagascar. In Europe, the marbled crayfish thrived in a range of aquatic environments. Their aggressive nature and adaptability to diverse conditions allowed them to outcompete native species. They disrupted local ecosystems, leading to declines in native flora and fauna. The crayfish's relentless spread posed a significant threat to biodiversity, as they altered food chains and outpaced native species in securing resources. The invasion extended even further when the marbled crayfish made their way to Madagascar. The island's unique ecosystems, which had evolved in relative isolation, faced new challenges from this invasive species. The crayfish's presence in Madagascar added a new dimension to their ecological impact, as the local wildlife struggled to cope with the intrusion. Cane toads. In 1935, Australian agriculture faced a growing menace: the cane beetle, which was wreaking havoc on sugarcane crops. In a bid to control this pest, authorities introduced the cane toad from Hawaii, hoping this amphibian would solve the problem. What began as an agricultural experiment soon spiraled into one of Australia's most notorious ecological disasters. The cane toads, with their impressive reproductive capabilities, quickly adapted to their new environment. Initially, the plan seemed promising as the toads began to establish themselves. But it wasn't long before the unforeseen consequences of their introduction became apparent. The cane toads multiplied at an alarming rate. Each female could lay up to 30,000 eggs in a single clutch, leading to an exponential increase in population. The cane toad's rapid spread across the Australian landscape began in the northern regions, where they first established their foothold. By the 1950s, the toads had begun their relentless march southward, invading new territories at a pace that shocked both scientists and environmentalists. Their journey south was marked by a relentless advance, with the toads traversing diverse landscapes, from tropical rainforests to arid regions. One of the most disturbing aspects of the cane toad invasion is their toxicity. Cane toads produce a potent toxin, bufotoxin, which is secreted from glands located behind their eyes. This toxin is lethal to many of Australia's native predators. The large warty toads have had a devastating impact on local wildlife, contributing to the decline of several native species. Animals such as the northern quail, which previously had few natural predators, suffered as they attempted to prey on the toxic toads, resulting in poisoning and population crashes. The cane toad's spread did not stop at the Australian mainland. Their success in Australia led to concerns about their potential invasions of other territories. They have been detected in nearby regions and continue to pose a threat to other ecosystems. The toads have become a symbol of the unintended consequences of introducing non-native species into an ecosystem, with their presence in Australia. Efforts to control the cane toad population have included various methods, from trapping and culling to biological control attempts. However, the toad's rapid reproduction and adaptability have made these measures largely ineffective. Lionfish in the Caribbean. The lionfish is one of the most notorious invasive species to invade the Caribbean and Atlantic Ocean, with its dramatic arrival and devastating impact making headlines across the globe. The incident traces back to the late 20th century, when lionfish were likely released from home aquariums, setting the stage for a new ecological crisis. Native to the Indo-Pacific region, lionfish are known for their striking appearance, with long, venomous spines and vibrant zebra-like stripes. Their introduction to the Atlantic and Caribbean was neither deliberate nor planned. It is widely believed that a few individuals escaped or were intentionally released from captivity, possibly during Hurricane Andrew in 1992, which damaged several aquariums and allowed the fish to make their way into the wild. Once in their new environment, lionfish adapted remarkably well. With no natural predators in the Atlantic and Caribbean, the lionfish populations surged rapidly. Their ability to reproduce quickly, females can spawn up to 30,000 eggs every few days, allowed their numbers to explode. This unchecked growth meant that the lionfish began to spread aggressively throughout the Caribbean Sea and into the western Atlantic Ocean, including the southeastern United States. The impact of the lionfish invasion has been profound and troubling. Lionfish are voracious predators with a diet that includes a wide variety of small fish and invertebrates. They have been observed consuming up to 50 species of fish, including juvenile fish crucial to the health of reef ecosystems. Their hunting efficiency and lack of natural enemies have led to dramatic declines in native fish populations, disrupting the delicate balance of coral reef ecosystems. The disruption caused by the lionfish extends beyond the reduction in native fish populations. As the lionfish prey on key reef species, such as herbivorous fish that graze on algae, the reefs experience an overgrowth of algae. This shift not only reduces the overall biodiversity of the reefs, but also hampers their ability to recover from environmental stresses and maintain their health. Efforts to control the lionfish population have been ongoing, with various strategies employed, including organized culling and spearfishing tournaments. These initiatives aim to reduce the lionfish numbers and mitigate their impact on reef ecosystems. Despite these efforts, controlling the lionfish population remains a challenging task due to their high reproductive rate. American mink. Originally native to North America, the American mink was introduced to Europe in the early 20th century for fur farming. However, an unexpected twist of fate led to their escape from captivity and subsequent invasion of European ecosystems. The incident began in the 1920s and 1930s, when American minks were brought to Europe to be farmed for their luxurious fur. These minks were housed in fur farms, primarily in countries like Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands. Unfortunately, a combination of poor containment practices and accidental escapes resulted in the minks finding their way into the wild. The problem was compounded by the fact that minks are highly adaptable and resilient animals, capable of thriving in a variety of environments. Once released, the American minks began to spread rapidly across Europe. Their introduction into new environments was facilitated by their aggressive nature and versatile diet. Unlike their native European counterparts, the American minks had no natural predators in their new homes, which allowed their populations to grow unchecked. They quickly adapted to different habitats, from wetlands and riverbanks to forested areas. The American mink's impact on native species has been severe. One of the most affected is the European mink, a native species that has been driven to the brink of extinction due to competition and predation from the invasive American minks. European minks, already vulnerable due to habitat loss and hunting pressures, could not compete with the more aggressive and larger American minks, leading to significant population declines. Another victim of the American mink's invasion is the water vole. These small, semi-aquatic mammals have become prey for the American minks, contributing to a drastic reduction in their numbers. The predation pressure exerted by the minks on water voles has further destabilized aquatic ecosystems, as these voles play a crucial role in maintaining the health of wetland environments. Efforts to control the American mink population have included trapping and culling programs. However, managing such a widespread and adaptable species has proven challenging. Also, the mink's ability to reproduce rapidly and their elusive nature make eradication efforts difficult. In addition to direct control measures, conservationists are also working on habitat restoration and monitoring programs to mitigate the impact of the American minks on native species. All right, guys, it's time for our subscribers pick. Imagine heading to your favorite beach for a relaxing day, only to find it overrun by thousands of crabs. What you are seeing here isn't a scene from a horror movie, but a real-life event that showcases the unintended consequences of human intervention. As part of a well-intentioned rescue mission, the activists released these crabs back into the wild to prevent their harvesting. Animal rights activists didn't let these invasive animals be killed. Now it's hell out there for people at the beach. Beaches once known for sunbathing and swimming have turned into a battlefield between crabs and humans. So next time you hear about an animal rescue, remember this beach covered in crabs and the fine line between helping wildlife and inadvertently creating an ecological disaster. Sometimes, nature's balance is best left undisturbed. Have you experienced any animal invasion like this at the beach or anywhere else before? Share your answers and experiences in the comment section. Signal crayfish in Europe. Crayfish have a troubling history of invasiveness, marked by repeated human attempts to cultivate various species outside their native ranges. This pattern has often led to unforeseen ecological consequences. The American signal crayfish, Paciphostachys leniusculus, stands out as one of the most notorious examples of this trend in Europe. Introduced in the 1970s, the signal crayfish was brought to Europe with the intention of enhancing commercial fisheries and providing an alternative to the dwindling native crayfish populations. The introduction was meant to address the severe decline of native species, particularly the white-clawed crayfish, which had suffered from habitat loss and overfishing. Unfortunately, the introduction of the signal crayfish soon turned into an ecological nightmare. The signal crayfish, native to the western United States, was expected to thrive in its new European environment, and it did so with alarming success. The crayfish quickly adapted to a variety of freshwater habitats, from rivers and lakes to ponds and marshes. However, their rapid proliferation had dire consequences for native crayfish populations and the ecosystems they inhabit. One of the most severe impacts of the signal crayfish was the spread of crayfish plague, a disease caused by the water mold Aphanomyces astacei. This pathogen is benign to signal crayfish, but devastating to native European crayfish. As signal crayfish spread across the continent, they transmitted the plague to native species, leading to dramatic declines in populations of native crayfish. This spread of disease caused a severe reduction in the diversity and abundance of native crayfish, disrupting local aquatic ecosystems. Beyond their role in spreading disease, signal crayfish also outcompete native crayfish for resources. They are more aggressive and have a broader diet, which allows them to dominate food sources and habitat. This competitive advantage has led to further declines in native crayfish populations and altered the balance of freshwater ecosystems. The displacement of native species has had cascading effects on the entire aquatic food web, including impacts on fish and aquatic plant communities. The invasion of the signal crayfish is not an isolated incident. Several other invasive crayfish species have made their mark on Europe. Species such as the virile crayfish, the red claw crayfish, the spiny cheek crayfish, and the red swamp crayfish have similarly escaped from aquaculture facilities, fishing bait supplies, or as pets. Each of these species has followed a similar pattern of introduction and invasion, leading to further ecological disruptions. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching.